Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so excited about this. So excited for this first episode of Keeping It Positive. This is something I've been wanting to do for such a long time, and it's so special that it comes to fruition. And yeah, I can't say enough. And although I don't know why I'm a little bit nervous, but this is really exciting for me. Um, for those who don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Benoit. I'm the owner of the Positive Inception. It's a motivational clothing brand based out of Sudbury, Ontario. Um, and the whole idea of the brand is help people be a little more positive and try to make the world a better place, essentially, and help people realize their full potential and go for what you want in life and dream big and work hard and never give up and persevere no matter what your limitations are. You can achieve anything. You just gotta believe in yourself and believe in your abilities. And if you want to do something in life, all we have to do is believe in ourselves and have good people around us to help us get to where we want to go. And I wanted to kind of create a clothing line to allow people to feel comfortable in their own skin, and promote a feeling of being positive and just trying to be your best self. And I guess this kind of sounds like a plug, but but it kind of goes hand in hand with what this whole podcast is all about, promoting great people and showing the good people that I've been so fortunate enough to meet and so fortunate enough to have in my life. And with the store, I'm able to meet so many amazing people every single day and have so many profound conversations and get to really know people and their beautiful souls and who they are as human beings and what makes them them, and kind of see a little bit of their superhero in them. And I think that's what I want to promote with the brand, the good in people. And there's so many amazing people, and with podcasting and stuff like that, to hear stories and to connect with people, and just to give people a different perspective of who they are and what helps them stay positive, what has allowed them to be where they are, what has allowed them to have the success that they've had, to be who they are, and to have a positive impact on people. And a lot of the times, on a day-to-day basis, I get to see people and meet people, and there's so many people that make you feel so good, and when you're around them, they make your heart feel good, and you're excited and energized and all that amazing things, and they bring out the good in you. And that's what I want to promote with this podcast. And I think everyone is special and unique in their own way. And I think that's what this platform's all about, to showcase the good, to showcase positivity, to have that feeling, that mindset of gratitude and thankfulness and all that kind of thing. And that's why I'm super excited to have these profound conversations, to really dig deep. And sometimes we meet people and we only scratch the surface, but this is kind of to try to dig deep down and have a few laughs and really have fun with it. And I think my favorite part of having this store is getting to meet people on a day-to-day basis and see um, not only what the brand has been able to do with them, or but get to know them as on a personal level. And I think being able to showcase that, being able to um, like really get to know people, create friendships, relationships. I think that's what business is all about, is building relationships. And I think it's not about what you do for people. It's about how you make them feel. And I think that's one of the big things is it's all about feeling. It's all about the goodness in people, like I previously mentioned. But that's the whole idea that that came about. And I think it's something that I really wanted to start a long time ago, but I guess it just busy. But there's no that's not an excuse. I think the right time is right now, and I can't go back in time, but I don't know what the future holds. So I think right now is the best time, because that's all we have guaranteed. And I think being able to get to know, sorry, being able to um, kind of dive in and be interested in people. I think that's super important, and I think that's sometimes we get so caught up in life, and I think it's really important to really ask important questions and be interested in people instead of being interesting. And I think there's a big difference. It's about getting out of our own head and being there for one another and caring about others. And I think and for me, this podcast is maybe a little bit about uh, my interests as well. It's about business. It's about relationships. It's about everyday life, so to say, and obstacles and challenges and how people pivot and what makes them who they are today. I think everyone has so many special abilities and so many special factors that make them who they are, and trying to grab little bits and pieces of information, and hopefully that can help. So if it helps one person, it makes it so much worth it. And I'm just excited to embark on this journey and getting to interview amazing people on a week to week basis. And I'm like I said, I'm super excited, super stoked, and I can't wait for what's to come. So that's just a bit of an intro, and I'm looking forward to to where this goes, so to say. And the first episode, it might not be the best, but we got to start somewhere, and somewhere is now. So thank you so much for listening, uh, and like I said, this is going to be awesome, and I can't wait. So thank you very much. In this episode, we have the luxury of interviewing Joey Slattery. What an unbelievable guy, great person. In this interview, in this podcast, we were able to dive in into a little bit of everything within his career, his life, how he conducts himself, his perspective. It's truly amazing, and this is why I wanted him as the first guest. Um, and he's just a very selfless person. When I first wanted to start the podcast, I knew he was big in the media world, and he's had some very good experience with podcasting. He does his own, and I thought, what better person than to ask for some help? And he was there for me right away, no matter what. That's just the kind of person he is. I can't say enough good things about him. His career is amazing. What he's been able to do, working with CTV, climbing up the ranks with that, working all over the country, whether it is um, for starting and being born and raised in Timmins to going to Sudbury to going to a little bit all over to Saskatchewan, to Regina, to Alberta, and now Winnipeg, doing amazing things in Winnipeg, whether it is working with the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and so many great things. And this is only the beginning for him, even though he's been doing it for so long. I'm super proud of him and what he's been able to accomplish, who he is as a person. I'm very grateful to have a friend like him, and I really enjoyed doing this podcast and having kind of a unique experience. It's a long one, but I think it's worth every second of it, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed making it. So, first off, thanks to Joey for doing this, and I hope everyone likes listening to it. Here we go. I'm super excited to episode number one and the one and only Joey Slattery. When I started this podcast, you were the first one that kind of came to mind. And over the years, we've had a long lasting friendship from starting at Laurentian to now all these years, even though we don't live in the same city. I'm always one of your biggest fans. And it's super cool to have you on. And it's one of the biggest honors. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Ryan, this is my honor, buddy. It's so cool that you have your podcast now. I think it's such a great idea. And when you reached out, of course, it was a no brainer. Obviously, I want to be a guest on your podcast. This is going to be great.
Yeah,
I'm so excited for you, man.
but when I like when I kind of thought about this, like we kind of talked a little bit before, like I want to kind of promote good people, right? And people that when you see them or when you meet them, you have a special feeling. And when I first met you um, through Laurentian, you kind of have that ambiance towards you, right? And everyone loves you, and everyone that talks about you or knows of you always has so many amazing things. So when I wanted to start this, it was kind of a no-brainer, and it's truly special.
Uh, I mean, that's too kind to you, buddy. I really appreciate that, and you're boosting my ego quite nicely ahead of this, so I like that. But no, it's funny because you and I actually met through Laurentian, but we didn't go to Laurentian at the same time because I would have met you would have been. I graduated, I think, probably the year you were coming into Laurentian, and it was through
Yeah,
lacrosse, right? Because you were helping out with the lacrosse team, and we were there for an alumni weekend, if I recall correctly. It might have been the first one, and that's where I met you. I bought the Positive Inception sweater right out of your backpack.
yeah. I
This
remember
is like the
you.
early days of
Oh
Positive
yeah,
Inception.
way early when it first started. But I remember you were with Jen, your girlfriend at the time, now your wife, which is awesome. But I remember like you wanted to buy one of the sweaters, and I remember saying, "Oh, I have one right here," and or I had a couple in the bag ready to go, and it was kind of like perfect timing. But when you say that in regards to like we went to Laurentian, but we also have like a similar past because you went to Laurentian and then you went to Cambrian afterwards in a in a post diploma program, and I kind of did the same thing, but I did sports administration, but I did human resources afterwards. So when I was kind of doing a little bit of research, I thought that was a really cool kind of segue, having the same like alumni, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, what did you like? Did you like the college route? Like when you went to do both of them? Because I found like I really enjoyed my time at Laurentian, but when I was in the college route, like it wasn't really planned, so to speak. It kind of came up later in my academic career, and I
Yeah, me
took
too.
public relations. Yeah, and I took public relations, and I remember thinking, man, like it was so weird because in the university I felt like you're on your own schedule, but when I was in college, it was almost felt like somewhere between what high school was and what university was. Like you'd be with the same people all the time in our program, like with my year. So we had all the same classes, and like we'd be at like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there'd be like set classes that we'd all be going to together. So it almost felt like you were in high school again. You're like, yeah, class is over. Got to run to my next class down the hall.
Yeah,
I
and
actually really enjoyed it.
it was all in the same building too, right? And
Yeah.
and like you just said, it was kind of like a big high school. So going like from high school to university, that was totally different. And then after Laurentian, going back to like a different learning style and more of a high school feel, that was I thought that was really cool. And I did it with one of my best friends. So that was really fun. And it was just totally different learning experience, but I really enjoyed both.
Yeah, same here. I found the engagement with the at Cambrian, like I was just more engaged with everything because it was so specialized, like in the interest.
Yeah.
Whereas with I found with university it was more like learning how to research, learning how to find answers, right?
Oh
Like that was probably the big thing that I didn't know at the time.
yeah.
And networking, I think I did like if you look at the networking that I've done, like where the roots of it are, like you could almost trace everything back to Laurentian or somebody at Laurentian. So I often say like do what you want. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't think you need an education essentially depending on what you want to do. But I think it is very good to go into that realm. But having a little bit of both is nice too, right? Like the
Mhm.
postgraduate, like if it's not a master's or whatever, and taking a year of a professional certificate or something like that at a college, I think is a great way to round yourself out.
And I think it's good too because in university you're kind of like a rookie, right? And you're really new, you're fresh, and then graduating from that and going to a post diploma program, you know what you kind of want. You're a little more mature, and it's a little more hands on too. So I think that's a good aspect of it as well.
Oh, big time. And everything's so new, right? Like when I went to university, I'm originally from Timmins and then went to Laurentian, which was the closest university to my hometown.
Yeah,
But it was still, everything's so new to you. It's the first time for many that you're away from home or, you've got some autonomy in what you're doing. Like you're not just, you're there's no structure to it, right? Like the structure, you have a choice of what classes you're going to take and what time you're going to take them, what program you want, right? It's all specialized stuff. But it's
Mhm.
it's a unique experience when you go into that first year. And I'll never forget it because a lot of my lifelong friends, that I'm still friends with to this day, are from that first couple of years of university, when you're meeting all those people for the first time, learning how to live is what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
Like
which is crazy to think about, right? Like coming from a small town of Timmins and getting into residence and meeting a bunch of random people that become your best friends, right? And I think that's a testament to you too, how sociable you are and how personable you are, and and people just like tend to be like gravitated towards you because you're so likable and a fun guy to life at a party, so to say. And I think the fun thing about you is like, yeah, you work hard, but you also play hard too and have a good time, which I think what university is all about.
Well, you know what? And honestly, you try to carry that a little bit with you. Obviously, in university, it's probably a little bit slanted depending on the time of year on what you're doing more of. That's for sure. But that's something that I think I've taken through even after university. Right? Is life gets serious obviously as you move on, but sometimes I think we let it get too serious, and it's a matter of keeping things light. And honestly, like I think that's probably a big portion of it too. I don't think I changed immensely from high school to university to being an adult, like in terms of being nice or whatever. But you really kind of rely on that. Like you're meeting people for the first time, and you realize the importance of a first impression,
Oh, for sure.
and just being nice to people. And at the time, I don't think I knew that. People tell you that, but kindness gets you a lot further, I think, than the other way around. And I try to bring that to all aspects of life. Is if I could be nice and assume the positive in people, like assume the the nicest until it's proven otherwise,
Yeah.
is the way I'd rather operate. It's give people the benefit of the doubt until they give you reason not to.
And I think that's a really good like perspective, right? And always try to see the good in people. Everyone has so much good within them, right? And I think being able to demonstrate that and believe in people and see the good in people, I think that really goes a long way. And that's how I think the reason why you are so successful as you are today is because you do that on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's the right way to live, right? And I wouldn't say there's one right way to live, but I think that's a really good approach to take. And I think if you do that, you'll never lose, so to say.
That, and yeah, it's also too, in my line of work, it's weird because I was a journalist, at CTV for a long time, where you do everything yourself. So you weren't really in the team setting, so to speak, right? As a video journalist, you're using the camera, you're writing, you're interviewing people, you're writing the stories, you're recording all the footage, you're putting it together. So it's very much a one man band thing. But when you are working with other people, it's as I moved into that stage where I'm like more collaborative and in collaborative situations, a lot of times too, it's it's just a matter of people have something to offer, and sometimes it's not always apparent. But if you can find out like a way to their why, right? Like if you're nice and you kind of make the atmosphere a little bit more fun, it tends to be, well, it is more fun, right? If everybody's on
Mhm.
board and having a good time, you're having more fun at what you're doing, and usually the product that comes out is better because of it, right? When you're doing
Yeah,
something that you're passionate about. But I think a lot of times we get too much into our own realm. It's not working for me, I'm not happy. And sometimes you realize that that's probably why everybody around you, that you're complaining about or whatever, could be a reason why that's the situation that you're in. And
yeah,
that was one of the things that I've come to realize is if you talk to people, realize, who they are, what their interests are, what their strengths are, and how to leverage those, right? Where it's, if you're collaborating with somebody, and someone has a strength in, I don't know, visual arts, and someone else, like I don't have that. I'm pretty good at hosting things and things like that. Like I've hosted radio shows, I've been on TV and doing all that stuff, but that doesn't get me anywhere without the technical side, right? And the better that the technical people are at supporting me to do my job, and that's like the true hard part of the job, at least in my eyes, right? Like it for me to go on a microphone or on a camera and talk is kind of the easy part. But all the other stuff to make that happen is the tough stuff, right? So I always go out of my way to make sure that the people that I'm working with are appreciated and let them know that I do appreciate them as much as possible, simply because I do. And it comes out of a place of honesty. Like I don't hand it out just because, but on the same token, I will be encouraging for people that, if I have worked with, and there might be some lags, I try to encourage as much as possible. To get the best out of people. But I've been very fortunate. I haven't really ran into that situation much in my life. Like it's usually the people that I've worked with, I've been very fortunate that I've gotten along with. I've enjoyed the working with them. And a lot of that is the positive attitude. And, you say, saying all those nice things about me, but there's a lot of people I've been fortunate that are like that bring that out of me, right? Where I'm comfortable and I'm happy and we all kind of get on the same page pretty quick, right? So yeah, it's huge when you're going into those types of situations to have that positive attitude and just be happy with what you're doing and finding the happiness in what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, life is short. We only have one, but we have to do those things to support it. Like you have to work, you have to have your own security, whether that's financially, emotionally, and all those other things. But it's important to make the best of those situations. And, you can make some memories in that as well, right? It's not all jobs are great. I understand some are just you check in, you check out. But when you're there, trying to make it as best an atmosphere as possible is going to be the difference, whether you enjoy what you're doing or you're counting the hours on the clock and, or the years before you can say that you're done and, give it all up. And I'm very fortunate that I've never really had that feeling of, I can't wait to retire or whatever, right? And end this. But a lot of that is because I've been very fortunate to be in situations where I work with people that are A, great at what they do, and B, love doing it. They have a passion for what they do. And 3, they're generally good people that I like to work with. So when you have those and they all connect, it's almost magic.
And that's a great equation, right? To have those types of people, but all those same traits that are passionate, they love what they do, and they're all good people, and that's what makes a team so so successful, right? When you think about sports, for example, you can't win it. You can't win a championship just with one player, right? You need everyone to come together as a cohesive unit to be able to do something special. But you have to be like your own MVP of your own team, and but having all those pieces together to glue together and to become a family, so to say, to become close together and create magic, like you said, right? And I think when it comes to working with people or getting to know people, as you were mentioning, I think like you have it right, you nailed it right on the head. It's about kind of being interested instead of being interesting, right? And being interested in people that you work with and and getting to know them and creating bonds. And I think when you're friendly and when you really care about the people that you work with, that's when the magic happens, so to say. And I think that's what throughout throughout your whole career and different things like that. And I kind of want to get into the journey of everything and when you started and where you are now. I think it's pretty cool. You've been all over the place from Timmins to Sudbury to now in Winnipeg, but Edmonton and Regina and all those places. I just maybe want to touch a little bit on that and your journey and how that all kind of came about and how you utilized one opportunity and how it created another one.
Yeah, well, I thought I wouldn't get into this actually. My dream was to always be a sportscaster. I realized pretty young that I didn't have the athletic ability to play professionally, but I realized, there's other areas that I have strengths in that I might be able to find my way into, to be a part of the scene, so to speak. And I always enjoyed covering sports or like when I say covering sport, I should say when I was watching sports, I was the type of person that if watching a hockey game, like I always loved like a pregame intro, right? Like the stories that were told beforehand, or the calls from a play-by-play person, or like those, like a great interview when you have a sideline interview where you're getting, and those ones are hard because sometimes in the middle of the game, especially, players just want to get in the locker room, get ready for the next period or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But when you're in that realm where you're covering sports, and covering those stories, and that to me was like where I always found the interest, right? Like I was more interested in the call and like the drama around it all than the actual like game itself, almost, so to speak, right? Like what amplified everything. Like, I think of, I don't know, Sidney Crosby's golden goal. Like you take away the call, it's still awesome. But then you put that call in there, and then you hear the crowd afterwards, right? Like Sidney Crosby, the golden goal. And then you just hear the crowd and the natural sound. Like, to me, that's just like mind blowing, right? Like, that was the stuff that I always loved about it. And so, yeah, I didn't get in to any of the programs. That's what it was. I applied to, at the time, like, it's Toronto Metropolitan University now. At the time, it was called Ryerson, and they had a really good broadcast program. I didn't get into that, and there were some college routes, but they were all pretty far from home. And I remember at the time there's like these aptitude tests or something, so you'd have to like go to some of them. You actually had to go to the college and write these like tests to make sure, I don't know, that you were smart enough to be there. It was just it was too much almost, right? And yeah, that was, I remember for a second I thought I would be going to Wilfrid Laurier University. I wanted to play baseball, and then an opportunity came up to go to Laurentian, and I went to Laurentian, and when I was there, I played lacrosse. I'm wearing the sweater where we met.
Yeah.
So one summer, I stayed back. I didn't go home, like back to Timmins. And there was a person that I met actually at the Grand nightclub of all places. There was a girl there that played on the soccer team, and we were both staying the summer. It was kind of like, oh, hey, and I'm sure, I haven't actually watched the season, but I think they kind of like talk about this on Shoresy a little bit, but there's summer Sudbury and there's like winter Sudbury, right? Where like winter Sudbury's all the students and the people that are you're there with throughout the winter, and then in summer, like I remember, I don't know anybody here, like there were a couple like local guys that I knew, like who went to Laurentian or whatever, and you kind of meet their friends. But like, yeah, it was just different. Like when you do things like going out on the weekend, it was just like a different vibe because you're not with your like normal crew, so to speak. And anyway, ran into this girl. And, it was kind of the conversation. Oh, what are you doing this summer? What are you doing? And she says, oh, yeah, I'm working at a radio station. And it was Kicks 97. Or is it? Yeah. Oh, man, I should know that off the top of my head. It's 97, right? Is that what it's called? The radio, the country station, Kicks 97.1. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it. There, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's pure country now, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, back in the day it was Kicks. Yeah, so it was there. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's really cool. Like that was my dream, essentially, right? Like I always wanted to be on the radio. Like I had a cousin who was a radio announcer and a sportscaster and a news anchor. Like he's much older than me. And then his twin brother was in TV. Like he was a news anchor in Timmins. So like I always saw them, and like those were the cool jobs, right? And those were like the jobs that like even as a kid, like everybody was like, oh, they have the cool job. That always was like interesting, whatever. So anyway, she introduces me to now a really good friend of mine whose name's Spencer. Her name is Spencer McCall. It was Spencer Shaw at the time. And basically she was saying, well, we run this tailgate team. It's like a street team. And it was her and this the girl that I knew from the soccer team. And they're like, well, we could use a guy. Like we really need we'd like to have a male presence. We just didn't have it. I said, I'll do it. Sure. Like I think I was working like part-time at Tip Top Tailor. So I was like, I'll take any extra hours I could get. Right. And it ended up being like the coolest experience because I was there that summer. We had so much fun. Like the team that I worked for there, like they kind of let us do our own thing. Like Spencer was the boss. Like she had they gave her like for the summer we had like a truck or whatever. So we'd be going to like Chelmsford, Azilda, like I can't remember all the little towns we went to, like around Sudbury. But we would just show up to events on weekends. Like it was awesome, right? And people loved to see it. We'd give away free stuff. So, you talk about the positivity, like every time you'd show up somewhere, people were like stoked to see you, which was awesome.
And I feel like perfect for that job because it's very personable, right? And like engaging with people, and like you got to go to events and like talk to people, like get out of your comfort zone, so to say.
Well, I'll tell you, Ryan, like that is my comfort zone. Like, I have no problem going into a room and talking to people and making friends. And I think you could talk to almost anybody who could back me up on that. So I felt like it was like, man, like you get paid to do this, like, and it was probably minimum wage at the time. It's just nowhere near what it is now. Yeah, but I was like, this is crazy. And everywhere you went, people would give you like free food. So I used to joke around and tell people like, oh, if you're a student, just get a job at a radio station. People feed you like crazy. It's awesome. And so I had a great summer. And the first taste I got with that was we hosted a request show. I think it was called like the drive-through request show or something. So we would set up a live broadcast like at a business in Sudbury or whatever, and people would roll through town and just like roll through our studio or like whatever put together studio, and they would request, like they could call in or whatever. So we were like it was myself and Spencer hosting it, and we were just two university kids in our early 20s, and they're like, yeah, go, like, have at her. And we had this show, and it was sponsored. I can't remember how long it was, but it always felt fast. That was the other thing too, right? But we were like, it was working with Spencer. I was so comfortable. I just had so much fun with it. And it was like, I remember being so nervous at first, like, I'm going to be on the air, right? Like it's like a nerve-wracking experience for anybody. And, and you're getting paid to be there. It's not even just like an opportunity. It was like, hey, do you want to come on the radio? It's like, no, like, we're paying you to be good. It's like, oh, shoot. And that was where I found, like, okay, like, it wasn't like scripted stuff. I wasn't delivering a message, so to speak. It was just, oh, like, we have to kill time. So we would just chit chat about things and about whatever country song or artist or whatever came through. Right. And, and I'd, crack a few jokes here and there. And, we had fun. Nothing was forced. It was really fun. And I felt very comfortable. And then, moving ahead a little bit, they needed someone for their weekend news. So they asked me if I could read some news scripts, and that's what I did. And once there was an opening available, they shuffled me in. I was doing weekend news. And I worked with a person named Leanne. She's still in radio. I think she works in Barrie now. But it was like her first radio job. And so she would, like, I would do the morning news. She would come in and do her radio show on the weekends. So we had like a couple of hours of crossover. And I was telling her, yeah, like, I'd like to make something of it, but I never really went to school for it. And I think this might be it, kind of thing. And she said, well, I had an internship at the Fan 590, Sportsnet, the Fan 590, whatever it's called now, like the radio station in Toronto, the sports station. And I was like, that's like, that'd be awesome. And the weird thing, Ryan, is like everybody that I worked with. So long story short, I got that internship. She set it all up. I got it. And then I was interning there, but I never grew up with talk radio. Like, that's something I did, so I only knew kind of TV. And I was like, whoa, like, this is a thing. Like, you just go on a radio and talk like about sports. This is incredible. Right. I was having a blast, and I was asking to cover everything. Right. I wasn't getting paid, but I was like, can I cover? I remember I covered the Canadian Open for like the PGA Canadian Open one year. I went out back when there was a lacrosse team in Hamilton. I'd grab a recorder, go out and grab some post game clips, and then the guys would air it like on their sportscast or whatever. Right. So it was kind of like making the most of my opportunity, because I didn't know how long it was going to last. I was so, hell bent on getting experience in that. But then it worked out. And then, I twice, a person that I met through Spencer, his name's Kari Virma, and he was working at CTV, and he's like, oh, you'd be great here, well, let me put in a good word for you. So I think I may have applied before I met him, but there was a job, I think, in Sault Ste. Marie. I didn't get it. And then a job opened up in Timmins, and I didn't get it, but I thought, like, oh, that's too bad, because, like, I'm from there, and sometimes it's hard to get people to move up there, because a lot of the journalism programs are in Southern Ontario or other parts of Canada, right? And it could be a little bit of a shell shock for someone who's not really used to, like, Northern Ontario. So anyway, third one came up. I drove through a snowstorm in Toronto. I was living in Toronto. I was actually about to quit everything because my car I was working for free for the radio station. My car got towed, and it was like my last $200 to get it back. I parked in a no parking zone or something. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, well, this is it. And then my buddy, the Kari, he says, well, here it is. Like, I put your name through, and then I get a call from, his name was Mark Oldfield. And he's like, well, can you come up for an interview? I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I can. But in my head, I'm like, I just got my van. I don't have money for gas. So I think I may have asked my parents. I don't know if I don't remember how I got the money to get there. I stayed at my friend Kari's place. Jen came with me. We drove in the middle of a snowstorm overnight to get to this interview. Like, we got there the morning of my interview. Like, I think I got to Kari's place like 4 a.m. and my interview was at 9. Like, I slept for like an hour and a half, went through. Everything was great. Like, third time was a charm. And that's where it all took off from there. It was 3 years in Timmins, 2 years in North Bay, which I loved that whole experience. It was cool to be in my hometown. North Bay was like the first time I really got out of my comfort zone. Like, you talk about that. Like, I didn't know anybody in North Bay. Like, I had ties to Sudbury. I had ties to Timmins. North Bay, I kind of was my first taste of like, oh, you got to kind of build your reputation a little bit and build your connections in that. And then when I went to Regina, that was the big one, because it was such like, now I felt how those people felt about coming to Northern Ontario, just because it was so different than of what I was used to. Like, really nice people, but you're getting used to like just weird things, right? Like, when I was at CTV Northern Ontario, I was one of the younger ones. When I went to Regina, I was one of the older ones. And then you're dealing with people just, they grew up in different areas, you know, they're in agriculture and things like that. Our newscast, we would talk about like wheat and, you know, agricultural stories, whereas in Northern Ontario, it's a lot about minerals and mining and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So it was really cool learning all that. But like, I got off the plane because my wife didn't come, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but she didn't come with me that for the first couple of months before we kind of figured out what we were doing, because we owned a house in North Bay. And I remember I got off the plane. I'd never been that far west in Canada in my life. Like I got off the plane in Regina, got in the airport, got in a cab, and that was it. And I just kind of figured it out. So that was a really good experience, a humbling experience of how to deal with just, you know, trying to build yourself up in a place you're not at all familiar with and have no connections with, no family, no friends, like nothing. I didn't know anybody there. So that was a really good experience to go out there and kind of just be like, you know, you talk about pushed out of your comfort zone, like that was it. And I loved it. I'm a huge fan of Regina. I loved living there. I was only there for like a year, not even a year, but it was, people talk bad about Regina all the time, and I hate it because it's such a great town, and so many nice people there, and rider pride's a real thing. The Rough Riders, you know, I love going to Rough Riders games and that. And then in Edmonton, it was, a little bit different because now you're in a bigger market. You know, it's a top 5 market in this country. There's a little bit more, pressure, we'll say, like, you know, there was more eyes on you, like internally and externally, like viewers and like your boss and that. And I developed like crazy. That wasn't a long trip, but I was there for maybe a year, but that was where I really felt I broke out of my shell, like where I felt comfortable. But that took like 5-6 years before you really feel comfortable in what you're doing, like being on air and, you know, not having those like nerves anymore. Like you always have that kind of adrenaline, but it was just like you felt more confident yourself and being yourself. And then once I got to Winnipeg, you know, it was a smaller market and I was in sports. So then I just felt really comfortable with my presentation and that. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up in Winnipeg. Worked at CTV Winnipeg for 5 years or not quite, maybe 4 years. And just decided, like literally one day I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. Like this just, it's the dream has kind of changed. You know, I always kind of thought I'd wanted to be, you know, an anchor on Sports Center and things like that, but it's just not where we are anymore. Mm-hmm. And then I decided, you know what, I want to try this new media stuff out. There's a lot of things that I wanted to try when I was working there that we weren't able to incorporate. So I said, well, you know, I'll kind of put my money where my mouth is and just try doing it this way and see where it gets me. And it's been really rewarding. Like I've enjoyed every minute of it.
That's amazing. Two things that kind of like that brought to mind when you were talking, or more than two things. But the first one was, you know, like I find it fascinating how you move, like every step of your career, you took a leap of faith. Like you went to Regina, you didn't know anyone. It was unheard of. Like, and then you went to Edmonton. It was kind of the same thing, starting from scratch, but you built your way up again. Like, how did you, like when you first of all, when you got those jobs, was it like people that headhunted you, or you just applied in like a promotion kind of thing?
So, kind of a bit of both, actually. It indirectly in a weird way. So the Regina one was funny because I had applied. There was a sports position open. I was applying to a bunch. Like I had applied to one in Saskatoon. I had applied, I think maybe even Hamilton. Regina. So anyway, this Regina one, through the interview process, I developed a pretty good rapport with the boss there, the news director, JC Garden, who I respect a lot. And unfortunately, I didn't get the job. But when he told me that, I remember my wife and I were at a conference in Florida, and we were going to a Tampa Bay Lightning game, and I had to like walk around the arena to take the call before walking into the game, and you know, kind of tough news to take before you're going into, you know, your first whatever Lightning game, and you know all the excitement that goes around going to a hockey game. And but he said, you know, if anything ever pops up, I'd like you to apply. Like I'd like for you to work here. And I said, okay, like awesome, you know, appreciate it. And I remember him saying, he's like, you know, like I don't normally do this, like, you know, to this extent. He's like, I do think you're talented, and I'd like to have you on my team in some capacity. And so sorry,
that's reassuring.
Yeah, totally. Right. Like that's what I got out of it. I was actually like, oh, that's cool. Like, you know, I'm on the right track, and you know, a bigger market will come or whatever. And but then a position opened and I didn't apply for it at first. And he's like, hey, he emailed me. He's like, did you see that post that came up? I'm like, I looked at it, but I just bought a house or whatever. And so he's like, I'd apply for it. And so I did, and they made the offer, and we had to negotiate a little bit because, you know, I was taking a pretty big leap, as you say, right? Like leaving because I thought I was going to be in North Bay for a while. At that point, I'd been there for almost 3 years, and we had bought a house, so we were kind of sitting, waiting there for the long term. And so I went there, and everything went really well. And then the Edmonton one, it was a headhunt. I got approached by another network out there, and they brought me down for an interview, and they gave me a tour of the studio and all this other stuff. But because I was there, connections. A woman that I worked with named Karen, I worked with her in Regina. She was working in Edmonton, and I just wanted to see their studio, right? Like, you're kind of there and just interested to see how other places work. And she introduces me to their managing editor named Rob McAnally. And I remember he said something along the lines like, "Oh, you're looking for a job? Like, we have an opening." And I was like, I said something along the lines like, "Actually, no, I'm pretty happy in Regina. Like, I don't think I'm going to take this job." Like, talking about the other one, right? I was like, unless, like, I'm going to go through the process or whatever. But if they were offered to me, like, it would have to be really good, because I was getting everything I wanted in Regina professionally. Like, I didn't get to do a lot in Northern Ontario. I was basically just a reporter. In Regina, I did everything. I anchored, and my boss made sure I had plenty of anchoring opportunities to, work on the craft. So I was able to write a little bit. I was doing a little bit of everything. So I really liked it there, because I felt like professionally fulfilled. Like, that was the biggest thing. So anyway, then he says, "Well, maybe just like send a reel anyway, just in case. You never know." And to the credit, from what I understand, there were conversations with my old boss in Regina and he had advised me, like, "I would like to see you stay within the company. Like, you built your name here, and I think we have a better reach nationally. And if you want to get into sports, the Bell, who's owned CTV, also owned TSN. So we're like, maybe there's a better opportunity if you stay within." And so anyway, but one of the things is he knew how important the professional development was for me, and kind of put it out there that if you put an anchoring wrinkle into that job description, I think he would be like Joey would be interested to go, and I would encourage him to go. But otherwise, like, he's doing really well here. So anyway, they needed an anchor for their weekends, and so they made that the offer. And it was the 11:30 too. It was like the late weekend news, right? Like, not a lot of people would want to take that, I guess. But I was like, yeah, of course, because if it's the weekends, I get to do Oilers highlights. Obviously, I'm taking that, right? So that was like, in my head, like, I was just in a whole different mind space, like, looking at the opportunity is like probably different as a news person would, right? Like someone who wanted to advance their news career. But in the process, though, like, I take the job in Edmonton. I think I was more nervous about that one for sure, because you're like, like, I really have to be at my top of my game, and a bigger market, more competitive. But it brought the best out of me. The people there were awesome. I still have many friends, even though I wasn't there very long. They, I fit in really well in that newsroom, and everybody, you talk about the positivity. Like, that was mostly my experiences with everybody there. There wasn't a lot of negative. Everybody was mostly, positive. In the news environment, there's times where it's very much, it's high stress. It's, it's the news cycle's quick, and deadlines are tight, and they're daily. So there's times where, you definitely feel the stress. But overall, like, I still keep in contact with a few people out there that, I'll be friends with forever. So it was, that one was like a headhunt, but it felt like more pressure. And when I got there, the pressure went away. I also felt pressure in Regina because there was a senior video journalist title, and I was told that didn't exist before I got there. So then I kind of remember thinking like, that's like, you almost put the pressure on yourself. So I learned through that as well. Like, it's the same job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, just do what you do. That's why they brought you in. So I learned that through the Regina phase. What's that?
Sometimes you just put too much pressure on yourself, and rightfully so, because you want to do a good job, right? You want to present your best self, and I think you try to do that on a day-to-day basis, which is great.
Yeah, totally. And then with the Winnipeg one, it was so when I got to Edmonton, Winnipeg posted the sports job, but I just moved to Edmonton, and Jen came with me, and it was like, we can't move within a month to, it was like playing prairie ping pong. You go to Regina, then Edmonton, then back to Winnipeg, right? But then months later, it opened up again. So the guy that had taken the job, I guess, had left to go back to wherever he's from. And so I saw the posting, and I emailed directly just saying, "I think this might be an error. It says it's a sports job, but I think you just filled that. So if it's a sports job, I'm interested. If it's not, don't worry about it. Thank you for your time." And they're like, "No, it's a sports job. It closes tonight. Send in your stuff." And that's basically did that. And, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm going to take a crack at the sports. It was always the dream, right? So even though you were going to a smaller market, wasn't really sure what I was getting into. It's been super rewarding. I mean, I love Winnipeg. Like,
Yeah.
like I was saying earlier about Regina, how, you know, people talk bad. Like Winnipeg, you know, people joke about it being whatever, the armpit of Canada or whatever. And you know, Winnipeg is probably the most supportive, positive city I've ever been in. Like for the size of it,
Yeah.
it's just not your typical big city in that way. It's got a real small town feel. But yeah, it like the connections that I made here and what I've been able to do, like, you know, even to just like make a living is unreal. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't come to Winnipeg, but I didn't know that was down the pipe, right? So sometimes you take those chances and you have no idea what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, that's what makes it so special. Sometimes you don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes you want something to happen, doesn't happen, but it gives you a redirection into something bigger and better, and it gives you a redirection into something even more amazing than you could ever thought, right? But
Yeah.
when you were talking, what really stuck in my mind is like when you're talking about your whole journey, you're talking about connections, and I think it's like this in business too. It's like building relationships and great relationships, but also not burning your bridges, right? And always trying to stay connected and always trying to be your best self, but never burning your bridges, because you never know what's going to happen, right? And I think that's with you, right? If you would have done something negative or treated someone poorly one day, something might have not even happened. So you never know who you need in life, or you never know what's going to happen.
Totally. And like, you know, now I'm a basketball journalist, and, you know, I do sideline reporting for a professional basketball team in a league that didn't exist when I started my career, like in TV. And you know, it's crazy because like when I came to Winnipeg, they didn't have a basketball team here. Like, you know, it was like maybe some rumors that maybe one day they'll get one.
Yeah.
And it not beyond that, it ended up becoming one of the most like popular things in our city, like in general, not even in just sports, like it being this hot ticket. Everybody fell in love with this team. Like the product has been really good, you know, and they play at the Canada Life Center where the Jets play. So it feels like the NBA. And, you know, I've talked to players where they've said like even the atmosphere is better than a lot of NBA atmospheres on a regular season game basis, right? Like excluding playoffs, because the fans are so engaged here, right? But like the fans in Winnipeg, and you know, I've said this before, you know, in general sports, like the general sports fan, I don't think there's a better sports city than Winnipeg. They have, for the size of it and the amount of teams they have and all the support those teams get. Like even, you know, I was at the volleyball nationals, working the women's volleyball nationals last weekend, and it was like 3,300 people or something like that showed up to the final, like dressed up in full hockey gear, like with the Manitoba Bisons. Like I think the hockey team came in full gear. I mean, there were like, you know, adults dressed in like Bison's hats, like those big furry ones, and like glitter coats and like face paint. And it was like one of the loudest atmospheres I've ever been a part of. Like, because it was their, even if they didn't go to the school, it's like, no, you're representing our city. And I don't think people here care about what like the distinction is. Like, yeah, of course, like the Jets are in the NHL, but that's not why people like the Jets. It's because they are the Winnipeg Jets, right? And the Winnipeg Jets used to play in the WHA, which was a startup league. No one cared. It was their pro hockey. And when the Jets left, the Manitoba Moose are still, well, they took a break, but they're back. But they were a popular team in the AHL. And most AHL teams don't get a great draw, but the Moose do. And now they both coexist here, right? And yeah, so the Winnipeg fans, and then the basketball blew up, and then I just, you know, I was able to kind of carve a bit of a following there, and, you know, kind of report on that, because it was underserved, because it was just so new. We weren't really used to like how popular basketball was. So it's been great to have that opportunity to kind of put the skills that I learned throughout my career into something new, just doing it on a new medium, right? Like it's mostly delivered on social media, but that's where the fans are, and that's the thing. Like the audience is there, and that's where they're consuming their content, right? Like even in this podcast, a lot of people are going to be listening to this in their cars, you know, in their earbuds while they're walking around. Like it's there's still a place for mainstream media for sure, but we have to utilize the digital media a lot better, I think, to really reach the audience and make sure that we're keeping people engaged, because we're just not used to being on the radio all the time, or being on, you know, the TV channel. Like a lot of people don't have cable anymore, right? Streaming's a big thing now. So yeah, that's that was the biggest thing, is just taking what I learned, put it on a new platform, and try to do a service to the people that want it. Like, people are very passionate about it and they want information, and I just do my best to deliver some compelling stories that keep them engaged.
And I think that's kind of what it's that's what life's kind of all about too. It's all about pivoting, right? And things change constantly. And yeah, you started in TV and doing all that kind of stuff, but now the world is changing in a different way. Yeah, like you said, it's still popular to some extent, but there's so many different avenues now. And I think pivoting and learning new things and utilizing all your skills from your amazing career so far and putting into something new, it kind of gives it like a refresh, right? And
Yeah,
which is so cool.
but it's easier said than done, Ryan. Like, that's the other thing too, right? Like, I think the hardest part with me doing this was, like, I had to deal with my ego, and I don't mean that in, like, an egotistical way, but like, my childhood, like, I was living my childhood dream, right? It probably didn't look how I dreamed it would be, but that's often the case. And then, as this is going on and I start developing new interests later in life, right? At this point, I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, oh, like, I want to try this, and that looks fun. But you almost feel like you're letting down your, like, whatever 12-year-old self, who's like, and not only that, the whatever 10 plus years I put into just that. Like, my whole life was about
Mhm.
moving my career forward and being in television, and and telling people stories and this and that. And then when I got to that point, it was like, no, I'm done. But I almost couldn't accept it for a while. Like, the term quiet quitting, it wasn't that. It was like more like, emotionally I was ready to move on, but
Mhm.
like, or maybe like, I physically I was ready to move on, but emotionally I was still tied to, like, letting my old self down, kind of thing, right? Like, it was hard to accept that I had a new dream almost, and that I wanted to try some new things, because you dedicated so much time and you almost think maybe it was a waste. So the pivot, you're right, it's very important. But if you're a person that's very drawn into one thing, right? You dedicate yourself to one thing, whether it be a sport, a career, a hobby, whatever, it's really hard to accept that you might have a new interest that you want to pursue, because you're afraid to let go of what you want. And I think that was like the first time in my life where I was like the letting go part was really hard until I did it. And then I did it and I was like, holy cow, like, this is awesome. Why didn't I do it sooner, kind of thing, right? Like, there's like a whole new world in front of you. But the mentality of getting to that pivot it's not as easy as sometimes it sounds, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
And it could be a bit of a challenge to get yourself mentally prepared for that next step, especially if it's something that's not like laid in stone, right? Like, I knew I was taking a chance. Like, I wasn't going to another job. I was trying to kind of create something. So that's another thing too.
But the thing when you say like the right time is now, right? And you said, "Oh, I wish I would have did it sooner," but like you can't control what happened in the past. You can only control what happens in the present, right? And you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And making that decision, and we always think like, "Oh, it might have been too late," or I'm in too deep. I'm like 10, 12 years into this career. I might as well just stick it out, you know. But you believed in yourself, and you did what you wanted to do, right? And it turned out better than you can ever imagine. And I think sometimes people get so caught up in the day-to-day life, and sometimes you just gotta believe in yourself and take a risk and work hard towards what you're doing, and keep moving forward, and for the most part, if you do things with the right intentions and you work hard at it, and you do it with a full heart, with a smile on your face, and you love to do it, I don't think you can ever go wrong. And I think everyone has a different definition of success, right? And what you see success is something different than than other people. But I think when you said, well, it really stuck with me when you said, I didn't want to let my 12-year-old self down. But I think if your 12-year-old self would be looking at you right now, he'd be so proud of you, Joey. And you're doing amazing things. And I think this is just the beginning of something truly special.
I appreciate that. And I actually do that, Ryan. Like I think of myself sometimes and visualize like if I had like whatever 15-year-old Joey sitting down beside me right now and we went over all the stuff that I've experienced in my career, from like covering NHL teams, the Edmonton Oilers and then the Winnipeg Jets, a couple of Grey Cups while I was covering the Blue Bombers, like,
Mm.
all those things, like, like that's some of the coolest ones too. Like every now and again, in the moment you try to take it in, but there's just so much going on. And then you think about it later, it's like, wow, like I was like on the field while they were presenting the trophy. Right. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm walking around in the confetti. Right. And yeah, sure. Like I never got to do like the NBA finals or the, NHL finals or anything like that. But like, it's like, they're very rare, like to get that moment. There are even people that'll go their whole career in this and still not get those opportunities. So, I got to go to 2 Grey Cups, one in Hamilton, one in Regina. Bombers won one, so I got to get both experiences. I got to cover the win, I got to cover the loss. But all those things are really cool when you go down the list of things, and you tell your 15-year-old self that, hey, I got to, you get to cover the next player like almost exclusively. Like you're going to be covering a team in Edmonton that has the next possible Gretzky on it. Right. Like that's going to happen. And you're going to be able to watch that in real life. Like, growing up in a city, you and I both grew up in a city with no NHL team. Right. So there's those little times you're like, yeah, no, not only like, are you going to games, like you got to work it and that. So 100%, that's a thing that I use to kind of just like remind myself of like the, the reflection part of it of like, yeah, this has been fun. And that was also what helped me move on. It's like, I've done everything I set out to do. Like I covered the sports I wanted to cover that were available. And when I was looked at it, I'm like, well, where can I go from here? It was just going to be wash, rinse, repeat at that point. So that's when I figured, okay, let's try something different.
But the thing too is that there's a great quote. It says, don't be sad because it's over. Smile because it happened, right? And I think that's kind of where you are, is you're on your new journey and your new experiences, and I think utilizing your past experiences to better yourself in your new chapter, right? And I think when you think about, oh, I maybe didn't do the NBA, or I like or like the NBA finals or something like that. Maybe one day you will, in a different aspect, right? And I think there's no doors that are ever closed, and um, because of the person you are and your work ethic and everything like that, you'll get those opportunities, and when those opportunities will come knocking, you'll be ready for it, and you'll kill it as you always do.
Well, the other thing too is I've kind of learned to just appreciate the moment. Like that's another big thing. Like I don't actually think about that much, to be totally honest. And I think a lot of people are shocked to hear when I say, the coolest part of my job was not covering the NHL. Like to the point where, I would be excited. I was more excited to cover the things that I would cover when I was in Northern Ontario, like the lower level amateur sports, because the stories were better. Right. Like it's cool, like to go to the games and stuff, but you're not watching the game like a fan. There's work to do. You're not really forging those relationships or really getting to the, the meat of the story, like, and those passion in, a media scrum of like 2 minutes. But when you get a kid who's a fencer or, and the thing is like, when I got to Winnipeg doing this, like I was talking to high level athletes almost all like exclusively, right? So while they were in like sports that aren't as popular, like they were Olympic hopefuls and dedicate their lives to this, but they don't get those multi-million-dollar paychecks. Like they are people that have a job like I do, but then have to do like even more work before and after to maintain their competitive edge, right? Because they're so driven to compete and win a medal and represent their country in that. So it's funny because like when I'm at a Sea Bears game, I will like, that is it. Like if it doesn't go past that, this is the coolest experience ever. I'm like, it's hard to put in perspective if you've never been to one, but when you're walking those sidelines and there's 8, 10, 11,000 people there that are cheering like crazy, right? And then you're getting the access to the players and delivering it in the moment, like, after a win. Like it was always pretty cool because if the home team won, they would put the post-game interview on the big screen, right? And you get the reaction. That was kind of cool because I'd never had that before. I remember the first time I'm like, what? Like people are reacting to what's happening in the moment, because when you do the interviews, like even on live TV, there's no audience that you can see, right? So it's kind of like getting used to, okay, like they're applauding, like take a second here because we got to be able to hear the questions or whatever. So, but like for me, that's like the big thing is like I get to go to a gym. Paul Jones put it this way. Paul Jones is works with the Toronto Raptors on the radio side. He does color commentary. It was me, him, and Rod Black, who's a Canadian sportscasting icon, who's actually from Winnipeg, but they had the national crew because TSN covers the CEBL. They have like a game of the week. So they were doing the game of the week, and we were at pregame shoot, and Paul Jones says, we get paid to be in a gym. Like we're getting paid to cover a game. We've hit the lottery in life. And I'm like, it's so true, right? Like, yeah, I'm not making millions of dollars. You know, I'm not Stephen A. Smith up there signing a $100 million extension. I don't need that. Like you talked about the success earlier. Like this to me is it. Like I get to go there. I have access to like to the players that, you know, I can build that rapport with them, learn about them, tell those stories, you know. And the best thing is my favorite was the CFL and the CEBL as well, because, but particularly in the CFL, there's no other place for an American football player to play if they don't make the NFL, right? Like there's no AHL, there's no you know, ECHL. Like hockey's got all these divisions that you could still like, you know, have a pro career in North America, although it might not be the NHL. In the NFL, you can't even go outside in the world. Like there's no other outside of the CFL. There's really no other options to play American football. So these guys come here, they're not making the millions they'd hope for, but I would guarantee you they are more grateful for the opportunity than a lot of the NFL players because they had a chance to live out their dream. And that to me was eye-opening when I first started learning those stories, where it's like, yeah, you got a chance to live out your dream. Sometimes it might not look the same as you dreamed it, but when you kind of step back, you think like, man, like my favorite sport in high school and growing up was basketball. Like I would have loved, like there was no basketball to cover in Canada, right? Like the odds of you going to the NBA were just as hard as a journalist as it would have been a player. And so then we get this league here, and now all these, you know, journalists and hosts and these great talented people are getting an opportunity to cover a sport they're passionate about. And to me, that's the win, right? If something comes along, great, but I'm not planning on it anymore. Like to me, like I love doing this every single day. You know, the other day I put a video together for, you know, like on Instagram, like a reel. I do these like reports, news reports or whatever. And I was up to like 6 a.m. for one. And, you know, this is on my own time. I call when I want to do it. And it felt like kind of like I was back at Laurentian, you know, the night before the paper I knew I had for 6 months is due. I'm doing it the night before till 6 a.m. but it's different when it's on your own terms, right? And that's the thing. So all those little things where it's just like I'm grateful that I have the privilege to do that stuff. And when I left my job in TV, the thing that you kind of know is there, like you expect when you leave like you make a significant move in life, right? Like you graduate, you get a new job, you change jobs, you get married. There's going to be like people that will come in, congratulations. You know, you kind of know there'll be some sort of it. You at least hope. But the support that I got, Ryan, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier about being a good person. You know, I think by general, I don't really think about it, to be totally honest. Like I'm just comfortable. Like I like being comfortable. So I'm a little bit more charismatic sometimes. You know, when I meet people, I like people to be comfortable around me as well. And so when people started reaching out with like more than just word support, like, you know, people like, hey, because a lot of people thought I got laid off, but I left on my own terms. So a lot of people were like, well, if I can help you, you know, like if you need some work, let me know. Like I might know somebody, or I can use somebody or whatever. And I was just like, that's where it hit me. I'm like, no, like this is, it means a lot when you're going through that and you're not sure of the decision you made. And so many people have that belief in you, even though they're probably not even sure what your goal is. Like it just, you know, kind of like this blind faith that you're going to do it. And they're like rooting for you. Like that was a big eye opener where I realized how important that is, right? Like not really planning that, like that's not, you can never plan for it kind of thing. So I do give that advice, is just try to be a nice person. Yeah, try to be a nice person. You never know what impression you left on somebody. And what I was doing was a privilege because you're sharing other people's stories. To me, I understood that. I was grateful for them telling me, but like it's a job, right? Like I have to hit my deadline, so you can't really like soak into that, you know. And it's not about you, it's about them. But I don't think I fully understood how much it means to them that they were on TV one time, right? Like a story about them was delivered to their community, or in some cases the country, right? So it's like it was neat to see the gratitude that goes into that, and the work that you do is fulfilling other people. Like I was always like focused on my fulfillment. I always thought people appreciated it, sure, but I don't think I realized the level that people appreciate, you know, that's that kind of storytelling and the kind of content that you're creating for people. So that was a bit of an eye opener, and, you know, a reminder that being nice just goes a long way, whether you know it or not. The best advice I got was when I first started at Sportsnet, was the producer that brought me on as an intern said, be nice to everybody on the way up the ladder, because you're going to see them on the way back down. Right. And you never know who's going to be your future boss. When you're young, you think like, yeah, everybody's older than me, right? And then as you get older, you realize like, oh no, like sometimes like people that are a few years younger than you or whatever get promotions and now have some control on where your career might go, right? And if you were a jerk in that one spot, where you disrespected them or didn't give them the time of day, and I try my best when someone reaches out to take the time to chat, video call. I don't know if there's ever one that I've honestly didn't take them up on, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a tough industry to get into. It's there's a lot of bumps along the road, and if I can help someone avoid certain bumps to advance themselves further, I'm more than willing. And also because people help me that way, right? It's almost like paying it back. So, you help those people out, but who knows? One of those, people that are fresh out of school this year might be my boss in 10, 15 years from now. I have no idea. And I don't think about it that much, but I do keep in mind that you don't know who you're dealing with, whether it's within a career or community or whatever, that what you did in that moment might come back to hurt you, essentially, right? If you're not, everybody has bad days, and that's fine, right? I think generally, if you do it enough, people just accept you're a nice person, and there'll be enough reference to know that, oh, you caught that person on a really bad day, right? Like, you can't be perfect. Everybody has bad days. There's times where you're stressed or upset, or there's outside factors. People don't know about it. They don't care about it. It really only matters to you, and you might lash out or something. But overall, you do have control with how you react, right? But it starts with taking care of yourself. Like if you're in a good space and you can, get yourself in the moment and, focus on the positive. Gratitude's a big thing for me. I like to, when I start getting in those little dizzy spells of all the worries or things that didn't go my way, I can literally sit in my living room and be like, wow, like as simple as it is, I can sustain a life where I have a home. Like, like honestly, and we're at a stage now, and especially in Winnipeg, like we see a lot of homelessness in that, where it's like sometimes perspective is not really far away. You just got to look in those ways and take your blinders off of, on yourself and see the world around you and realize how fortunate you are. Because if you start comparing to people and, and all the things that other people have done, you'll always find someone to compare yourself to that's doing better than you, even if they think they're not. And that's the interesting thing, right? Like the ego, when I talk about ego, it's your ego that builds those stories, that ties that emotion to it, where you create those realities, right? So if you think it's real, you will feel it. It will be a real feeling. But if you can take yourself and ground yourself in that moment and kind of realize where you are, what you've done, you'll realize that there's a lot to be thankful for and that life actually isn't so bad.
Oh, for sure. Oh, there's so many amazing things that you said in that little splurge. But
your Instagram teases.
But the one thing I thought that was the one of many things that I thought that was super special that you said is like when people would reach out and reach out when you left and offered you support, and I thought that was such a cool full circle moment because the reason why they did that is because you touched them in a great way, right? And you had a positive impact on them, and just by being who you are, and they wanted to offer their help or their expertise or just offer something to help you move along. And I think having that full circle moment is just kind of a testament of who you are, right? And how grateful you are. And I think there's a quote and something that I try to live by is not really a quote, but it's attitude of gratitude, right? And that's kind of what you were mentioning before too, is always being grateful for what you have and who you have, and not to compare yourself to other people, right? Comparison is a thief of joy. And I think if you like you were mentioning, if you compare yourself to others, then you'll never be happy, you'll never feel fulfilled, and you'll always kind of feel empty. And I think you got the right equation of attitude and gratitude and the people around you. And I think you're you're living the life the right way. And I couldn't be happier for you. And when you're talking, I always have the biggest smile on my face. And and I think people listening to this, and it gives people a really good perspective of, yeah, you're just talking and talking about how you're feeling and who you and your foundation of things. But I think it really gives people a good perspective of how to be a good person. And I think that's what the podcast is all about, surrounding yourself with the right people too. And I think that's even though we don't talk to each other too much. And I smiled a lot when you said, "Oh, I would love to help people any way I can, especially if they send me an Instagram message or a text message or an email." And that's exactly what I did to you when I wanted to start this. And see, you're the first person on this podcast, and that's just the type of guy that you are, which is pretty amazing. And I kind of wanted to bring it back a little bit and really ask you this important question. I think because of the person that you are, the positive person that you are, um, and how you have such an impact on so many people. Who are some of the people that has had a positive impact on you, or like mentors, or people maybe in the industry, or people in your life that has made you Joey Slattery?
That's like there's a lot, honestly. Like it starts with family for sure. My parents were very supportive of everything that I've done, and I was fortunate growing up to, foster that love for sports, I guess we'll say. Um, and I was, despite the fact that I grew up in Timmins, I didn't really have a lot of examples, right? The people that would have been where I'm from, like Shania Twain being the biggest one, but I wasn't going to be a country star, right? But like that was, there wasn't many people to look at where it's like, oh, like follow that path, right? I had my cousins, my cousin Dave and Dale. They were broadcasters, and I got to watch them growing up. I remember take your kid to work day. I went with my cousin Dale for like to the radio station. It was the first time I was ever inside a radio station and stuff. And like those are those little things, right? And then mentors professionally, like there's just so many. Like like I've been so fortunate to work with some great people, and in passing, right? The program director at the Fan 590 when I was there, I didn't even know he knew my name, and it was a chance meeting afterwards, and then he became my reference, right? We just kind of hit it off, and his name's Don Collins. He's been so supportive. When I'd be navigating big decisions and contracts, things like that, the business as a whole. He's a guy again that's pivoted. He's the king of that. He's had some much higher profile roles than I had, but he's one for sure. There's JC in Regina was one. And just people like along the lines, like that was one of the things. Like I'd reach out to like say a Rash Madani, who was with Sportsnet for a long time, and he don't take time to talk to you on the phone for a bit, right? And look at your demo reel or whatever. But what I noticed is the people that I was very fortunate. A lot of people gave me the time of day and would help me out with those, those things. So like when I say mentor, like some of them weren't like necessarily like a mentor as you would think about it, but in those times they gave you the insight, the mentorship in like that small snippet almost to push you ahead, right? Like to help elevate your game, so to speak. But and then like it influences like on the air, like honestly, like I always like Sportsnet. So there's a lot of guys like Jay Onright, to an extent, Darren Detition. I like when I say to an extent because he was just so like unique to himself. You can't really replicate that. But there's things that I'd watch a lot of sports and a lot of news, and there'd be things that I would like, oh, that looked good on air. That hit, right? I'm going to try that. And put it in my toolbox. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you move off what doesn't, and then you like keep what does. And then somehow it becomes you, right? Like all these things that you learn along the way and tips that you've got along the way becomes who you are. But like my influence is honestly, like you asked me today, I'll give you a set of names. You asked me for there'll be a whole bunch of other names that come to mind, right? But I think the biggest influence for me is just it's in the moment. Like there's a lot of people that wouldn't be like big names that have influenced me, like sometimes just your small group of friends or the contacts that you make through the jobs that you've had and things like that had an influence on you. Like good friend of mine, Claude Sharma, who I worked with at CTV Northern Ontario. He was a dude that like I thought he was the funniest guy. He was one of the like hardest workers I ever worked with. And I remember I'm like, man, that guy can tell a story like crazy on TV. Like I want to be like him, right? Like he was like could do everything so well, from like shooting, editing, writing. He always had the right word for everything. Like it was just, and you take those kinds of the influences just in your day to day. Like he had an impact on me in a sense that it helped develop my work ethic, my sense of humor. Like we had a very similar sense of humor, right? So there's people that I've come across, like cross paths with, some that, you know, I'm still very close with, others that I've, you know, unfortunately distanced, and that's just natural. You can't, you know, so you only have so much time in a day and a year, and people get on with their own lives. Spencer Shaw being another one, or McCall now being another one. Kari Virma, who'd helped me, like, you know, influence my career in terms of opening the opportunities, you know, to get me in CTV. But yeah, there's so many, like, you know, and even from year to year, how you change from the people that you meet and the experiences you find yourself in. So, but I to narrow it down to, like, you know, one or two people would just be so tough. There's so many people that have, whether they know it or not, have impacted me in my development, made me feel comfortable. I mean, I worked with Stacey Brotzel, is another name that I worked with. Remember I guest hosted a radio like the morning show in Edmonton with her, but I always credited her and Robbie Williams. They were the morning show hosts at CTV Edmonton that broke me out of my shell, because I'd be live in the mornings and they kind of like have fun, man. It's mornings, because you're always like in news mode, like you're kind of on your shell, like I got to be professional and I got to. But they were the ones that were like, and we got great feedback, and then that was my like that moment, like this is what they mean about be yourself on TV, right? Like don't be someone you're not, and people will love it. Like that's where I was like, oh, because now I'm just more comfortable. My guard came down, and that kind of set the trajectory for the rest of my career where I am now. And honestly, like I've been very fortunate with the opportunities that come up, and those connections have led to opportunities. You know, I've done some work in Edmonton since then. But yeah, it's like different people. I mean, I could go on forever. Heather Kim was a boss I had in Edmonton, who I give a lot of credit to for really holding my standard high, right? And having a critical eye and being able to, you know, be critical of yourself, but not in a negative manner, right? Like she, you know, there'd be, everything was under the microscope. So you're always were, every detail was looked at. So there's just so many people. And then you, Ryan, I know it sounds weird, but like, you know, this, what you've been able to accomplish and how you carry the positive Inception brand and that positive attitude. I mean, it's like, I have to share the story. I was in a restaurant in Vancouver. This just a few months ago. And I'm sitting there, my wife and I, and it's this nice restaurant, like it's on the water in Granville Island, and Sandbar, I think it was called. I can't remember. I think it was Sandbar. But I sit there, and there's a person behind me, and like I kind of like off to the side, I can kind of see my peripheries wearing a flannel shirt, a red flannel shirt, and I see the logo like on the chest, and I'm like, I had to do a double take. Like, that's a Positive Inception shirt. Like Positive Inception brand. I'm like, I'm in Vancouver. So I'm like, I have to, right? Like, and you talk about connection. That is the connection. Positive Inception is the connection, because I'm like, I know that they know Ryan. Like, I know it. Like, you know, it's that's the brand. Like, you are the brand. So I'm like, odds are they're from Sudbury, right? Like, that's just, so I asked him, like, so, hey, you from Sudbury? It's like, no, I'm from Red Deer. I'm like, oh, I'm like, where'd you get the Positive Inception? Oh, I've done work there. And yeah, I love the brand. I got this shirt. He's like, and then he went on about how he wanted to work with you for his business to get some stuff done, some clothing done and all that. The whole conversation for the whatever minute and a half that it was, 2 minutes, was about Positive Inception and the brand and how great of an idea it is and how great the clothes are and everything else, but just the meaning around it and what you've been able to create. But you literally brought two strangers together in Vancouver from Sudbury. I think that's incredible. So, you know, you talk about those influences. Like, I do often think about, you know, your positive mentality and how great you are at singing everybody else's praises and helping people feel better about themselves, right? Like, you know, and realizing how, you know, the greatness they have within them, because you're so selfless and what you've been able to create. I mean, I have cousins in Sudbury that went to your store that wasn't because of me. Like, it's not because they knew I knew you or anything. Like, they found the brand. And I remember seeing it in an Instagram photo, and I'm like, that's my buddy's brand. Like, I know Ryan. Like, oh, I love Ryan. Yeah, he's so sweet. Like, you know, so it's you know, even for yourself, like, that's what I mean in those passing things, like the influences. They're a little bit from everywhere, but a big one on the positive attitude is definitely with you and what you built. And not only just from a positive attitude, the work that you put into this, man. Like you started from your backpack, and now you've got a brick and mortar store that you've had for years. And, you know, and you were talking about, like, you know, even the adversity through the fire and everything else. Like, it's crazy what you've been able to build and establish and how it's grown from this community thing. And you've always stayed true to Sudbury and the area and your hometown, and people rally around you there, but it's now branched out, you know, all over the world. And I think that's really cool in terms of, beyond the business success of it, is just how many people you can tie into your brand and build that connection, that emotional attachment to it in what was probably a short visit in your store.
Well, thank you for that. But it is super cool. It's like I try to promote the brand. It's more than just clothing. It's a message, right? It's a mindset. It's how you make you feel, and like it's really special to see like random people connect with one another. Like people tell me every day, "Oh, I went on this trip and I saw someone in Mexico or Cuba," or like, and or we see someone at the airport and we stop them and they're freaked out because how would they know I'm from? They're from Sunbrain, and it's like, oh, you're wearing positive inception, and then it's a whole thing. And I think that's super. It's like creating a feeling and bringing people together, and like in a good way, and like spreading positive vibes, I guess. But I never really thought it was gonna become what it's become, but it's been truly special, and I think that's why I love doing what I love to do. Right? It doesn't. It's probably like you. It doesn't feel like work. Yeah, sometimes it's stressful and things don't go the way we want it to. But you just gotta uh, always try to find the good in everything and keep doing things with a full heart, right? And I think that's kind of what has allowed us to continue on our directions and keep moving forward, and having the right people around you too. I think that makes a huge difference. And I remember when I first met you, I met Jen too because she came, and I kind of wanted to mention her because when I was doing research and thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I think she's someone that I wanted to mention too because I seen a quote and it was like, be with someone that, sorry, be with someone that believes in your dreams more than you do, and find a partner like mm, like that, right? And I think like I haven't found that one person yet. One day, hopefully. But I think like when I think about you and Jen and your relationship, I think she's that person to you, and she believes in you so much. She moved across the world, like or across the country with you, right? And she's with you every step of the way. And I think I wanted to mention her and how great your relationship with her is, and you meeting her at a party in university to now being married to her, which is pretty special.
It's 100%. And honestly, like that is one of the biggest things where I was the most fortunate. And like, I remember because it really got real, like that, oh, we could be moving across the country because we really were in Ontario for the most part. And then when we went to Regina, it was like, yeah, like that's where it really hit home where it's like, yep, this is, and she's been so supportive. And that was another thing too, that she made sure it didn't weigh on me when I was like planning to leave CTB. She was very, encouraging. Like, she knew I wasn't happy with where I wanted to be, and that does play a factor, right? Because it's not just me, it's us, and and we've made those moves because of me, but we did it as us, if that makes sense. So yeah, so to have someone like that, and I'm very fortunate. A lot of relationships don't last in this industry because of it. It's a big demand. A lot of people, might never get married. It's just it's a lot. It's a very high demand job with those things. It doesn't, and the thing is too, is you're moving all over the place, but you're not getting paid a ton more a lot of the times. Like you're just chasing your dreams, right? So there is a large part of sacrifice. It's not like I'm saying, hey, we're moving to Toronto and I'm, making $1 million a year or anything like that. So it's definitely a team effort. I've been so fortunate that she was on there, and you're definitely right. She's made more sacrifices than I have. I would make the argument because of that, right? She's had to pivot. You talk about someone who can pivot, it's her. And anytime we move somewhere, like she's the one that's got, that is able to make the house a home, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, no, it's very fortunate, and that is one where I'm just lucky. Like there's no, there's a luck factor to things. I always say in life, especially when it comes to career, I always say there's timing, talent, timing, and luck. You need all three to kind of work out. But with this one, that's pure. I was purely lucky to meet her. That she was willing to dedicate, herself to this, like to my dream. and that it became our dream, right? And it's not always easy, especially when you're telling someone, hey, we're moving to Winnipeg for less money, and then I'm going to leave that job with nothing really cement there. I'm going to try and work it out, but I don't really have a plan, right? And she's like, you'll figure it out. And there's times too where I'll bring something up or I'm a little nervous or whatever, and she's usually the one to calm me down. So that's one of those things where I was fortunate, but I think a lot of it had to do is going back to like my personality. I talk to everybody. I love learning about people, and I love meeting people. I love the social aspect. And if I don't have that personality, we don't meet, right? We might cross paths and never actually have that conversation. So it just goes to show that in any stage of life, whether it's work, life, love, whatever, if you don't put yourself out there and you're not social and you don't make those impressions, you don't know what you're missing out on. So that would be a good kind of like a tie around to that, actually, is just, if I'm not that outgoing person that, at that point I'm partying for sure. It was a party in university. So I was probably even more social than normal, but, but no, it's like, that is my personality. I'm someone who likes to go out there and meet people. And, and I was just fortunate that I met someone who was, that was as eager to attack those dreams as I was, and be a part of the ride. Cause it's not mine, it's ours. Right. So, and if you don't have that support, cause there's a lot of times, especially when I was in sports, man, when I was in Winnipeg, I was hosting more, like I was a sports reporter and, like anchoring on the sports side of things, where I'd be working late nights covering the Jets, getting home in the morning. And then I'd be hosting a morning show, like quite often on a fill-in basis, it felt like, where I'd have to be at the office for 4 a.m. Right. And so then I'd be going to bed earlier. I'd be tired and stuff. So there's a lot, like even just like the moving and stuff like that's one thing. But sometimes it's just, and it's for me too, where I've got to like force myself out of like being tired or something, because, we have plans to do something. So it's definitely like a two-way street in that sense, but like she's putting all the work into that. Like it's not easy when you're with somebody. It's like, oh, well, another night where I'm sitting here cause he's working late, cause she works like, a day job. So we've gotten better. Like now that we both work remote, it's been easier, like throughout the day, let's say, like, you know what I mean? Like we can go grab lunch, we can go grab a coffee, we can just hang out in the living room for a few minutes, like, take a break and hang out. So that's been like the luxury of remote work. But you're totally right. None of this is possible without having her. And it's made things easier, as crazy as it is, because of all those moves. She takes care of a lot of the stuff, right? Like, like I rent the U-Haul and everything else, but like the packing and the organizing and all this other stuff, like that's what she does. So like when we go through those moves, like the labor is like, she's leading the labor. And especially when we moved to West, because I wasn't there to pack. She had to pack a whole house and sell a bunch of stuff. Right. Well, we had a puppy. Like it was crazy. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's 100% true. But beyond that, the group of people that you choose to make your circle goes a long way with what will dictate things like that. But even though they might not be part of your circle, they might not be a person who's typically friendly or known to be friendly or nice or whatever. Maybe you just don't know them at all and they look like they're not a nice person. Doesn't mean you have to sink to that level. And who knows, sometimes it's just those little things like a hello or how are you today, a small conversation that might be the difference. And maybe it's not, maybe they don't want to talk to you, and that's fine too. But you have a lot of autonomy on how you like want to form your life. So you have the circle, they'll influence you, but I think a lot of people understand is how much influence you might have on a person, right? Regardless of what you might think. You might be a boss that you can influence, right? They might not even, you look at them as a higher up, but your positivity might help them, or someone who's, higher up in another level of something that you consider to be high or prestigious or whatever. But, I treat everybody the same. Like that's one of the things I don't get starstruck. If I'm meeting you, it's not about your accolades or what you've done or what you haven't done. Unless we're talking about career and we're trying to figure out things like, as like a more of a mentorship type situation. But overall, like it's everybody, we're all the same. We're all built to the same, we all have a heart, we all have muscles, and we all breathe the same air, we all have skin. We are all going to die. Not to take a dark turn, but like as is life, right? It is what it is. So at the end of the day, we put too much sometimes, I think, emphasis on things that don't matter. And even when we meet people, and sometimes we go in with those intentions that, you know, I got to impress this person for one reason or the other. And what I really, I just, yeah, like most, I'm sure I've done it, you know, where like there's times where you, like, you know, you're going a job interview, you got to impress people. But overall, it's, you know, if I'm meeting you, it's, I'm not really worried about what you've done, who you are, what your bank account looks like, because that doesn't affect me whatsoever. What affects me is how you make me feel. And I hope that I can make you feel comfortable, happy, whatever, right? That you walk out of there with a smile would be the best way to go. And same for me. I want to walk around with a smile. So if you can make me smile, I'm all about that too. But you have a lot of autonomy in terms of how you can influence other people. And you will be surprised probably how much your circle adapts to that and receives that energy.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, just I could hear you, I can listen to you talk like all night, and just like what you like. My heart feels so good right now, just being with you and chatting with you, and I think everything you said is like spot on, and it makes so much sense, and it's just who you are, and it's, I think the special thing about you is like you don't try to impress people, you do it automatically because of who you are, and I think that's what makes you great. That's what makes you Joey, and it's super special. And I wanted to talk a little bit about like this whole thing about being who you are, and I think um, you mentioned a little bit about being you, and I think that's why you are where you are today. That's who you are as a that's why you are as a person, as being unapologetically yourself. And I think that's what you got to do to be where you want to go, and how like be successful on your own terms with anyone, right? But when you think about the life you've built with you and Jen, and your career, what legacy do you want to have, or what legacy do you want to leave? When if something, God forbid, happens, what do you want people to remember about you?
It's funny because I ask this question a lot to athletes, you know, when you're trying to get to the heart of why you're doing things. And honestly, Ryan, I just hope that people remember that they have some good memory that pops up, right? That I hope that there's a sense of feeling. I hope that, like, you know, it doesn't have to be like devastating, but I hope there's a sense of like sadness, like, you know, but also happiness, in the sense that, you know, there was an impact on your life, that you heard the news or whatever. And there was kind of like, oh, that, you know, that's too bad. And then a good memory pops up right away. Like, that's all I want. It might be a little interaction, because those are the things that I'm grateful for every day, right? And, you know, unfortunately, we've gone through a run here in Winnipeg where we've lost some people that I've gotten to know over the years that were those people. Like, and, I would message the, you know, people, and it was almost like coping mechanism almost for me too, right? Like, you want to share those stories because I want their loved ones to know, like, as much as I knew them or as little as I knew them, here's the impact they had on me. And some of them were small gestures that were a big deal. And one was, we lost Ted Wyman was his name, is his name, and he passed away a few months ago. And he's a well-known journalist here in Winnipeg, and I got to know him a little bit, but he worked for the Winnipeg Sun, and he was like the first guy, and he was kind of known for this. Like, when someone would come in new to the community, he's always a smile. Like, oh, hey, Joe. Like, you know, and he'd say it like that. Like, I was already one of the guys, and I think I might have met him like that was like the next time, right? Like, I introduced to him the first time. Oh, hey, how are you? Where are you from? Next time, like, oh, hey, Joe. You know, and I always appreciated that. And then when we were at the Grey Cup, I'll never forget. There's this room that they'll rent out, or not rent out. There's like a room that's that they have for the media. And you know, it's like after everything's done every night, there's, you know, always like beer and stuff there, and it's just all the media guys just kind of talking about the old stories and talking about football. Like, you know, it's a mix of all those things, right? Like the old days, the current story, and just like, you know, oh, remember this trip there, blah blah blah. But, you know, I remember I was nervous because there were all the names that I grew up with that were there, right? Like big TSN guys, some guys from Sportsnet. It's a little intimidating. Some of the big, you know, columnists there that, you know, I've never seen in person. And, you know, you go in there, and, you know, as much as I love to be in a room and everything else, it's also like, oh, you know, I can't like swing with these guys in terms of, you know, their sports knowledge and this and that. And I don't even, like, to the point, I don't remember what the topic was or what it was, but him and I talked about something, and I brought up a point that he thought was interesting. And when they were talking about it, I was kind of in the circle, and he just kind of looked over. He's like, oh, hey, Joe, like, you were actually, remember you said this, like, and then he said, what was it you said that got me in the conversation, and was just kind of accepted as a whole? Like, it was just like, I wasn't the new guy. I wasn't like, the guy that's not at their level. Like they were just taking the point. Like, and then I realized like, oh, I do have insight. I'm I might not be at their level in terms of my who I work for, but like my insight is something that might be that things that other people missed or might add to someone else's point, or we might agree on something, we might disagree. It might be something that creates the conversation or moves the conversation forward. But that's been the big thing for me is the with him was he made me feel comfortable, and that was very important to me and why I enjoy this place so much. He was one of the reporters that he helped build a culture here. It's a very good culture among sports journalists here, and everybody's very supportive of each other, right? Like it's not a competition. Like we compete with our brand, so to speak, but those are the companies that pay us at the end of the day. Like we're in the trenches together, right? And that was like it was different from that old school mentality of the media landscape where it's like, oh, ratings and this and that, they matter, but also like we matter. Like we want to see each other do well, and he was a big driver in that. So there's people like that where that's the kind of thing that I would want to spark. There's another basketball player, Chad Posthumous, who passed away. He's only 33 years old. What that guy accomplished at 33 years. He played for Team Canada on both, like 5-on-5 basketball and 3-on-3. He got to play for his hometown professional team. He scored the first game-winning bucket for his hometown team that didn't exist. But this guy walked around with a smile. Like you talk about positive, I've never seen that guy without a smile. And I remember the last interview I had with him. They had just got knocked out of the playoffs, and usually when that happens, everybody's very stone-faced and upset, whatever. And his approach was like, yeah, we lost a basketball game, man. Like and we're gonna come back next year and try again. Like that's it was just like he had a perspective of life like beyond the sport where it's like, yes, I'm a basketball player, yes, I'm 7 feet tall, and people will look at me, but he used his size as like a friendly giant. He was a fierce competitor on the court, but he would be out in the community. He'd be with the kids at all the camps, and like helping them dunk or like blocking them because just try to like tease the kids as they're trying to score on them and things. But he was at every community event that team put on, and he became the face of the team because of his personality. Like, yes, he was a great basketball player, but everybody knew Chad. It was a one name thing, right? It was Chad. Like you knew who in Winnipeg, you drop that name, exactly who we're talking about. And then he passed away suddenly, and he, that was it. It was sharing those stories of just like, you felt like you knew him right away. Like he was a guy who you would think would have his guard up as a pro athlete, like with reporters and stuff, but no, he was just open. Hey, how are you? And always had the time for everybody. And, those, when I think of those people that, are now gone, and there was moments that spark, and there's a feeling that, yes, you are sad to see them go, but I'm so grateful that our paths crossed. And then is there a way that you can carry those good traits ahead with you? So to wrap this all up in the legacy, if I don't think about it much, it's more about the people that I've met. If they do find out that I died, if it ever got to them, or they remember who I am, that would be legacy enough. Is that there was a moment, a connection there that was memorable and was impactful in some way, shape, or form. And I hope that it comes natural, right? That's the other thing too, is I try to do good things on a daily basis that I'm not thinking about it. And if you can help someone in one way or the other, that's all you can ask for, in my opinion, for a legacy. Is just the people that are here. Eventually we all get the same fate. We'll all fade away at some point, but you can only have an impact on the people here and hope that their impact, goes on and on. So there are people that have impacted us, Ryan, that we've never met and we'll never know, don't even know their names, but everybody has an influence on someone's life that creates the next being. And that's where we are. So that's all I can ask for.
What an amazing answer. That's so good. The one thing I really liked what you said, all of it, but I really liked when you said, like, you can carry their good traits with you and continue their impact. And I think that's super powerful because some people that are unfortunately gone, you always think about the good things, right? And you try to carry their spirit with you, kind of thing. And I think what you said, it was so like beautifully put. Not to get too emotional or nothing, but I think that's truly amazing, and I think like it's a beautiful way to look at it. And everyone has so much good within them, right? And hearing you say that, it's like reassuring, but I think it's just amazing.
And 3 funerals I'd been to in the last little bit from people through like, colleagues and stuff like that. and all of them had those moments, right? And that was the big thing for me was, another one, her name was Joanne Cochran, passed away. I think she was working. And, and she was someone when I first got here, she was one of the first ones to reach out to me. Never met her. Didn't even really work with her that much, to be totally honest. I met her in person like once, maybe twice. A lot of it was on Zoom, right? Like talking like we are right now, like just video conferencing and that. But she was so passionate in her work. And she was the one that, oh, if you need anything for the Blue Bombers, like I have contacts. Like, how can I help you? Right. And, she was always so happy and getting on and fired up to, like to get to work. Like she loved what she did. And, that's the thing is like those people, had no idea that they had an impact, right? And the memorials were different too, right? Like we had our own little memorial for the friend that we worked with, and then the Ted's was at a cabaret, and like hundreds of people showed up. It was like a massive party, but like everybody was just like, that was him. Like, they were able to put like that was his last wish. I want people to party, put my urn in the corner. I just want like one last party with people and everybody to have a good time. And then, with Chad's, there was like thousands of people that showed up, including the premier of Manitoba. And I remember, I think it was his dad that said, like that was one thing they asked, just, if to honor him, just do something nice for somebody, smile. And I was like, it's that simple. Like, it really is that simple. Every time you do something like that with intention, like you're honoring those people. And a lot of those people want the same thing. So when you're doing those little things, like it's a small act of honor for a lot of people that have influenced you that are no longer here. And that's how you carry their legacy, because at the end of the day, it's that spirit of the person that lives on. Right. And it's through those acts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's amazing. What you said, it was like when you do a small gesture, you do a smile or something good, it's like an act of honor towards them, right? And that way their legacy and who they are lives by with your kindness. And I think like preaching what they preach, and it makes you a better person too, which is like it's a whole full circle moment, and they'll always be with you in that regards too.
Totally. Right. And that's, and like some of those people with, who have bigger platforms, you touch people, like people's lives that you'll never know. Like you'll never know. Right. And that was like the biggest gift out of TV, I think, was like, even when I was there, and even to this day, like a few weeks ago, someone's like, oh, like I haven't seen you on TV in a while. I'm like, yeah, it's been a couple of years. Like that's a good observation. but that was the thing is like, people will be like, I enjoyed watching you. And in that case, Ryan, it's so funny because I'm not doing anything special. Like it was just like, I was the guy that would come in, especially when I was in Winnipeg, we're listening to all the, the doom and gloom of the news day. And then it's like, oh, sports time. Right. And it would be like a fun conversation about hockey or curling or whatever. Right. And I would have fun with it because it was fun. Like that was the thing. I always wanted to have fun with what I was doing. So, but that was for me. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to make somebody's day. So when you'd have people come over and be like, oh, I really loved watching you on the news for, I thought you were funny, or you brought a lot of energy. I loved you with that person. That way you get a lot of that too. Like, oh, I loved when you and Nicole talked, or you and Marilee or whatever. It's like those things too, where it's like you have an impact, but you're just doing your job, and that's a real privilege that I think is lost on a lot of people. And it's not like just on TV. I think your store, for instance, right? Like there'd be people, like I've had some memorable service experiences, like as weird as it sounds, where I'm like, man, that person went above and beyond. I don't know their name. I barely remember what they look like, but I can remember going for that oil change and just feeling like I was so well taken care of because they were just a little bit extra nice, and it wasn't about the job, and they were just striking a quick conversation about whatever, the Jets, the Oilers, the Leafs, or the road conditions, whatever the case may be, right? But those are the ones, like people in. I remember I was flying back from Cleveland, or we were in Atlanta, and I sat beside this woman who explained out the window all of Tennessee to me. I was like, but I was so intrigued. I was like learning so much about it because I'm learning about, that's where she was from. She's like, oh, I live in this area. These are the Smoky Mountains. And I'm like, oh, I've heard that. I don't actually understand why. And she's explaining all this stuff. And she was so proud of it. But that was like an impact that I had. Like on this plane, like I made a connection with a person that I'll never see again. And like to cap it all off, she helped me around the airport to find my way to my flight, or to my next flight. So like she's like things like that, where you're just like, you can't really put it in perspective, like it didn't seem like much. We were just having a conversation, but it was her willingness just to like share about stuff. And she was asking about me and where I'm from and what I do. And we had this great conversation. But like that person there, I'm like, yeah, like it was so nice, because you're sitting beside a plane for like someone for hours beside a plane, and it's awkward. Or you can we neither of us had our earphones in or a book or anything, and it was just like the conversation started and it kept going. And that's the thing, is like, it doesn't have to be big acts. It's just when you're in those situations, whether you know it or not, someone's impacted by what you do. And it could be negative too, right? That's the other thing. You could flip somebody off as you're driving past them because they're driving too slow, and that will likely have an impact on their day in the negative effect. Actions have effects, and that's a big thing. So if you can, like, in those moments where you're pissed off because you're, someone's driving too slow or you're caught at a red light or whatever, it's taking that deep breath. What does it get you? That gratitude that you flipped them off. Well, I showed them. Yes, you did. Right. And they might actually feel bad for a little bit, and you're happy about that because you're not happy about the way they drive. And, I could be a person sometimes where I get frustrated with like stupid things like that when you're in a rush. But I always take that deep breath. It's not a big deal. I'm going to get to where I'm going, and life is going to move on one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. But and I think like having that interaction with that woman on the plane, you said you'll probably never see her again, but you'll remember that moment for a very, very long time, right? And that will probably lead you to more moments if you go on planes, and you'll be able to talk to people and have similar conversations because you've done it before, and you're such a personable guy, you'll never know who you're gonna meet, right? Which is pretty cool. But
Yeah, totally.
when you were talking about like when people would come up to you and say like they enjoyed you watching you on TV, and we all have those kind of people that we listen to podcasts, and it's just like a goofy podcast. It makes you laugh or it makes you comfortable, but like it must be such a cool feeling to be able to do that, right? It probably makes you sit back and realize like, wow, I was just being myself, but they really enjoyed it. And like I give them comfort and make them feel good. And I think that's why you're so special. And I think you gotta. I think sometimes we don't realize the impact we have on people, but I think just keep doing what you're doing, and I think it's pretty incredible. And more people have to be like you, that's for sure. But I also wanted to mention it kind of made me think about when you were saying like funny stories and funny things on air. And I was watching some of your your clips. I found some online, and it made me laugh. There was one I wrote down, and it was about you were doing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it was a game against Edmonton, and you're like, oh,
Okay.
don't. I'm paraphrasing it right now, but like, well, Winnipeg doesn't have to worry about it. Edmonton is not a very good team, and then there's one play, and it said, um, like the quarterback throws the ball, and all you hear is like one of the players. His name is Adam Bighill, and he's and he just crushes the guy, and he's like, "That's Adam Bang Bang Big Hill." Fun fact: no one calls him that, and thought that was the funniest thing in the world. I was laughing so hard.
Because like, it's weird. It's like, it's funny because when you're in those moments, like, you'll just say stuff, like, you'll get into it, and like I don't know why I said that. And I just, like, in the moment, I'm like, that was stupid. Like, why did I say that? Like, it's not his nickname or anything. So I had this little moment. Like, yeah, I vaguely remember that, but like that would happen sometimes. Like, you would just
Yeah,
say something, or someone will say something to you, and you're just like, I don't know where I'm going with this, right? But yeah, that's really funny. That's what I mean though. You have fun with that stuff where it was like, you're just like, you're giving sports highlights. Like, people can get this anywhere. That was my thing when I was doing them. Like, I don't know who's watching at this point. Like, they've already, like, by the time I'm on at 11:30, they've already got their scores on their phones and whatever else.
yeah,
So like, I want to give them a reason to come watch. Like, that was another thing too, is like, I didn't want to be myself, because once I understood that is the difference. Like, like a lot of times, talking about podcasts, and everybody's like, oh, I got to have a niche and stuff. And, well, what makes your podcast different from their podcast? Me. I'm not them and they're not me. That's what makes it all different, right? And once you kind of realize that, that's what you're kind of bringing to the table. And sometimes we undervalue what we're good at because we're just so used to that. You're yourself. You live with yourself. You know yourself inside and out. So there's nothing special to you. And that's like for elite athletes as well. Like, I don't think they fully understand like how hard it is to do what they do, because they did it. wasn't hard for them, right? Like it was hard, but not impossible. Where other people, like, it is impossible to get to certain levels because of your skill set or whatever. So everybody's unique in that sense. But that was always what I tried to do. Like I was having fun, and that's definitely for sure. Like I don't remember it totally, but that's like a Jay Onright moment. Like, that's from me watching Jay and Dan growing up, and Tim and Sid and all those guys, right? Like it's like they fostered our kind of sense of humor that we're allowed to have on air. And yeah, for sure, like that's exactly what because I used to watch them, and it was just because they were funny. Like that was it, right? Like the people that I watched, like for different reasons, it's because they bring something to the table. That's why I choose to consume their content. And that's it. Like they're covering the same thing, and I might watch the same thing twice, but with two different narratives to it, which goes back to like the start of this podcast where I'm like the soundtrack of it all. Like, when you're doing play by play, like you are the narrator of what's happening. You are the one that puts the cherry on top. And that's what those guys do, like, day in and day out. Like, and I've been fortunate enough to exchange emails with Jay Onright a couple times. Who's another guy who got back to me, like didn't need to. I've never met this guy, giving me tips when I moved to Winnipeg because he was from here. Like it's, and that's the other thing. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. That's another thing that I don't think I've mentioned yet. Like I put out emails out to many people, and most got back. Some don't. But a lot of I've been fortunate to meet some of those people that I would consider, influences, heroes, whatever you want to put it, who gave me the time of day. And I'm very appreciative of that because sometimes it goes awry, like it's not what you thought it would be. And, they could be whatever, mean or whatever, just not want to help you out. And that's their right. They don't have to. So that's another thing that I would say too. For sure, I've been fortunate in that, but don't be afraid to take that chance and reach out and ask for advice. No one's perfect, and you'll learn very quickly that a lot of what you're going through that you think is going to end your career or, an embarrassment you're never going to get over, you'll learn that a lot of people have gone through the same thing and have done just fine.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. And I think that's a story I wanted to mention because it made me laugh, and it's kind of who you are too. Goofy, you always want to make people laugh and make people feel good. And Adam Bang Bang Big Hill, I thought that was hilarious.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I don't know. Like that's the other thing. I don't know. People don't give you the reaction. Like what I was saying earlier, when people were reacting to like interviews, like when the player would answer and they'd all applaud, right? Because he was the player of the game or whatever. So when you say those things, like I don't know, maybe someone thought it was funny, maybe they didn't. So thank you. At least I know one person thought that one thing was funny.
I rewinded like 5-6 times.
Well, another one, I'll actually never forget this one that I said on those lines because I got an email about it and I thought it was going to be a complaint. But we got a close up of Paul Maurice, who's the head coach of the Florida Panthers, but he was with the Winnipeg Jets for a long time. And part of that while I was here, and I was doing the highlights. And at one point, you can see that he's saying the F word. Like you can see like very clearly. And I don't know what I said. I think I was like it was a bad call or whatever. And there's like something along the lines. And there's Paul Maurice. Oh, you can clearly see. I don't think I said you clearly see him. It's like, oh, there's Paul Maurice. You can see how he feels. Oh, poo. Or like, what I said, like, but I said the word poo. Like he was like, it was not what he said. I was like, because I'm on TV or whatever. And this woman's like, did you just say poo on air? I thought that was hilarious. I was like, I did. I don't know why I said that. I'm glad you had a kick out of it. But I was just trying to emphasize that he said a very bad word that I'm not allowed to say on TV. So just having a little fun with it. But yeah, I wish I knew the context of it totally. But it was a bad call, and they zoomed in on his face, and I just like dubbed his lips and did my own what I thought he was saying.
That's awesome. And that's another example of just having fun with it, right? And you don't know what kind of reaction it's going to get. And I think if you're having fun, then there's a good chance that other people are having fun too. And bring that camaraderie together and making it more than just a broadcast, right? And making it somewhere that people want to tune in and be a part of it because you're part of it. And I think that's a testament of who you are, and it's absolutely awesome. But there's one last thing. I know I kept you for a long time, and this
no worries, buddy. No worries.
I wish we can do this all night. But the one thing I wanted to ask before we end all this is, do you have like a mantra or a quote that you live by every day, or something that has helped you get to where you are today?
Honestly, like just being present. And it's nothing that I really repeat to myself. There's times where I will like kind of remind myself, like going through the things that, that I'm grateful for, gratitude being a big one. But no, I like it's just being nice, having fun. Like honestly, like I think that would be the mantra. It's just, you know, if you're doing something that you're not enjoying, but you have to do it, there's always something that you can find the enjoyment in, right? Like everybody has a great work story regardless of their job, right? And it's usually because of the people that you're with, and usually it's the worst situations that bring about the most memorable and fun stories, right?
Mm.
So yeah, I don't really have like a mantra or anything like specific that because at some points in my life it was like, work hard, don't quit and all those things, which also kind of played a negative factor when I was trying to leave, right? Because you were in my head. I'm like, I'm quitting. Like that's wrong. Which is a mindset that I've changed. That you're not quitting, you're changing. That's a big difference. But yeah, it was like, but those are the things, right? It really depends on where you are in life. But I think in the last few years, I've gotten a lot better. Like learning meditation, for instance, and being able to slow down, enjoy silence. We're always on our phones, we're always watching screens, and it's go 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 all the time. And I try as much as I can. I'm pretty good at it. I try to make it my routine, but like every morning I'll get up for anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour. And if I can do it, maybe an hour, but it's like basically just sitting in silence and just kind of letting the thoughts roll through your head and then focusing on your breathing and just realizing like it's just a blessing to be here, right? Like I'm sitting down on my chair, whatever, I'm breathing, and that in itself is a beautiful thing. And it allows you to kind of set the pace for the rest of the day. And then I just try to remind myself when we're in those situations that nothing is permanent, like, the good and the bad, but particularly the bad. Like we tend to think, I think when things are good, we're like, there's a party that's always like, I don't want it to end. So you're kind of more cognizant that it's well. But we carry a lot of negative stuff, I think sometimes, that we don't always need to. And we try to ignore it. That's another thing I've been better at is, let yourself feel it. That's how you get over it, right? If you're sad or you're angry, you don't have to lash out, but you have to go through those feelings. And if you keep burying it, it is going to lash out, right? Like I'd always say, whenever I had a disappointing, like, I didn't get a job that I really wanted or something, I'd always give myself a reset day where I was like, it was just 24 hours where I allowed myself to feel sorry for myself. I allowed myself to mope a little bit, and just kind of whatever, do things that I enjoy, like waste a day, so to speak, right? But then you feel great afterwards because you're like, you get it all out of your system, and then you move forward, and you let yourself feel it. It's I think for a long time there's probably a moment where I was always like, I have to be happy, I have to be positive, I have to be, which is not the case. Like I don't have to be anything. Like I get to choose what I want to be, but it's easier to move ahead and be the person that you want to be if you allow yourself to feel all the other things and process it. It will help you, at least in my experience, it helps me move through it faster. So, on those are the things that I kind of live by on a case by case basis, is just slowing it down, enjoying the little things. And when things don't go your way, it's not the end of the world. Life moves on. We tend to make things bigger than they are, but you can look out the window at any given moment and probably see 3 people that your terrible day that's ruined your life apparently has no impact on them whatsoever or effect. Like it's only because you're making it your everything and you're deciding to make it your focus at the time. So once you can allow yourself like, yep, it's bad, I didn't like it, or I don't feel good, but this is the feeling. Like I got to push through it, because if I don't feel it now, I'm going to feel it later. So that's one of the things that I feel has helped me out a lot. Not really a mantra, but I guess more of a practice.
Yeah, which is amazing. I think like a practice that you try to do every single day, and that's why you are who you are, right? And you're consistent about it, right? And I think the more you're consistent about things, the more you put into practice, the better it is. And I think hearing you speak and having knowing what I know about you, I've known you for so long, but it's I think you are the perfect first guest for this because just I think the insight that you there's so many sound bites that when you're talking, I'm listening and I'm loving. I'm like, this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing. Like it's like just who you are as a person. I think more. I know like everyone is individual, but your characteristics. I think that's what what's good in the world is so much within you. If that makes sense, you have so much good within you, and it's such a privilege to have a friendship with you, and it's such a privilege to know you. And speaking of people that know you, that went to high school with you, and they say, "Oh, Joey was always so positive, so energetic," and everyone says the same exact thing which is so amazing. And I love it when I hear that, because you deserve all the accolades, you deserve all the recognition, all the flowers in the world. And I guess that's how I kind of want to end this. Is I appreciate you so much, and I have so much love and admiration for you. You taking the time and talking, and just by like being with you for this last couple hours, like, and my heart is so full, and that's the type of feeling you give to people, and I want you to know that.
I appreciate that, Ryan, and it goes both ways, buddy. And I think this podcast, I'm so happy that you're doing it because I mean, you are the face of this. Like, honestly, like, when I think of positivity, like, I think of you immediately. And what you're doing with this is I think you're amplifying all the people when you talk about influence, right? And we just talked about those little influences. You're giving that, you have a big platform and you're just expanding that and allowing people you're creating that community. And I think it's awesome. I can't wait for this to get off the ground. And I'm going to be a listener because you know so many cool people and you're so good at celebrating them. And now we're going to get to know why you love them so much. And I think that only adds to what it is that you're all about. And I love everything about it. So best of luck with this. It was an absolute honor to be the first guest on your podcast. I've been looking forward to this as soon as you brought it up. And, you talk about it, how things are going well. I speak on many people I haven't met, and we all feel that way about you. And I know this podcast is going to be a success because it's going to reach people and it's going to have an impact on their lives. And they always say if it's one person, that's great. That makes it worth it. And there's going to be well more than one person that's going to feel that way. So I'm really happy that you did this because you keep finding ways to spread positivity, and it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much. You're getting me all emotional, and I really
I got to give
appreciate
it
it.
back to you, Ryan. Come on. You're giving it all to me here. I got to start throwing it back the other way.
That's awesome. Like I said, I can't thank you enough, and hopefully, not hopefully, we will always be in touch, and you'll be one of my great friends for the rest of my life, and I really appreciate you.
Same here, buddy. Thank you so much for this.
No problem.